The Carolina Panthers dropped to 3-4 and slid under the 500 mark for the first time this season after their loss to the New York Giants. Team representatives continue to communicate that they have to be more accountable and more consistent despite a decline in performances, particularly on offense.
With the defense we have, if we can just run the football and protect the football, we'll win games. I mean, the formula is pretty simple. It's just not being executed, and that's why I'm focused right now on trying to get it executed this week.
Some critics attribute the downfall largely to quarterback Sam Darnold's poor critical decision making, as well as his inability to effectively go through progressions as a key factor affecting the team-wide efforts to play complementary football. Others have speculated that it may be more of a psychological issue, specifically his ability to see the task beyond the moment. In the sports evaluation process, this type of issue is known as performance anxiety. ADSN analyst Mark Bright recently spoke with renowned sports psychologist Dr. John F. Murray about the effects of pressure on top-level players. Dr. Murray was able to shed light on the struggles of athletes and coaches whose routine response is to focus on the physical failure versus the psychological side.
When teams struggle and players are asked to play with a sense of urgency and then turn that into action, is it as simple as saying it and or practicing, or does something else need to happen on the psychological side, on the player's side, in his own head for that to actually happen and come to fruition?
Well, it always has to happen within the player's head. And some players do it naturally. Some players have been trained to do it better. And then you got a number of players that either aren't getting regular training or didn't really learn that. And that's the difference between good and great. So you have the Tom Brady's of the world that have, for whatever reason, are doing that and playing with urgency and being resilient and focused. And then you have other players who maybe they might have enormous talent. They may have better talent than another player, but they may not have that same mental acuity, mental strength. And that's where I come in as a sports psychologist. And the panic is always bad. And so you can call that pressure, you can call that anxiety, or whatever you want to call it. But urgency is good. Nervousness with excited urgency is good. And you're right. It's a thin line.
Dr. Murray did not speak specifically about or diagnose Sam Darnold because he has not been authorized to do so. But Murray is a clinical and sport performance psychologist who first introduced the concept of scoring the mental side of a sport and developing the MPI, or Mental Performance Index, for American football.
Many times I've been talking about this, and I work with this daily, is when it has to do with a number of things. Number one is focus. If the focus gets too internalized, so you're thinking about yourself, you're thinking about how you're performing. The field goal kicker that's gets iced by the coach calling a timeout at the last second and then misses the crucial kick. Like we had 5 or 6 misses in a row in a game a couple weeks ago. So the internal focus needs to go to an external focus. So we have to get them focusing more outward on the contact point of the ball, for example, not thinking about their own thoughts. Number two is a sense of ease and a sense that it's not a big moment. The idea that it's a big moment might be true, but it's also subjective in that player's mind. So we have to almost play as if it's a backyard football game and not a Super Bowl championship. Number three is a deep sense of relaxation. So allowing the muscles to be relaxed, the mind to be loose. So those three combined tend to be what I'm shooting for when I try to help somebody avoid panic or to avoid anxiety or to avoid choking. So you got to know the player, you got to know how they tick. And then in addition to having the basic knowledge and the skills to change behavior, you need to understand how to adapt it to that person's individual needs. And that's what I do. There's a number of reasons why you might fail. I've read a lot of articles on failure. People always talk about success, but you have to also understand there's a difference between choking and overanalyzing and panic where you don't really think at all and you're grasping for straws. There's also just pure technical flaws.
But in some cases, the athlete may have to deal with the simultaneous issues unrelated to what he's thinking.
There's injuries. That's something we sometimes underestimate. I've had a lot of NFL players in my office. When I find out the real truth, they were dealing with an injury. It wasn't really a mental skill. So I'm humble enough to know that it can sometimes be physical. It doesn't have anything to do with mental. But there is a distinct difference between the GOATs, the Tom Brady's, I don't want to call Patrick Mahomes that yet, but he could become that. So there's a lot of great quarterbacks now in the NFL. But there's a difference between that ability to, again, going back to what I said earlier, make the important moment not that important. Make it just an average situation. Take that Olympic moment and turn it into a practice.
You got millions of people watching on TV. You got 60,000 people in the arena. How do you convince or get a player to say, hey, it's a big moment, but think of it as not a big moment, and chances are you'll be successful?
You don't start with a big moment. Secondly, it's not what I say, it's what they do. So, for example, I will spend hours in imagery with a player. Imagery is just another fancy word for making movies in your mind or visualization. I always tell people this: it's not what I know, it's not what you know, it's not the knowledge. That's the frontal lobe of the brain working on the analytics. Okay, we got to get beyond that. We got to create a habit that is so well rehearsed that it just comes out in the heat of battle. A lot of people in the media say, and that is to focus on winning. We don't control winning, we control performance.
For me, it's slowing it down. I want everything to kind of be rhythmic and a little bit slow. Slower is not a great term, but that's kind of the word that I've been using, is more on rhythm and a little bit slower than what I've been doing the last few weeks.
So 2 things. Number 1, get it automatic in imagery or visualization. Number 2, focus more on process elements, not outcome elements like winning and losing. It's easy to do that. And that's why you have to assess. The evaluation always precedes good clinical or good mental coaching work. And if I see that they have a tendency to take urgency and turn it into pressure, they're making a fatal flaw. They're never going to make it. Most players don't make it, if you think about it. It's actually unique to be a Tom Brady. It's really rare to be somebody like Joe Montana. So absolutely, I would want to find out what's going on in their head.